Well, they can't
the
solicit
information.
downtown.
You
Isn't
better
that
be
one
sure
of them?
about these things before you.
I don't believe it says that. But there's the book.
That may just be used to her not
Follow
soliciting
up to that.
downtown.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Do we need a motion, as Mr. Mitchell has indicated, to direct police chief to kind of investigate this? And
If you want to make
or
a
is that
motion,
through
you can,
is that through you?
I can have him check on it.
You follow up?
Yeah, I'll definitely have him
Yeah.
check
What
on it.
could we do that, sir?
Yes, yes, indeed. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I know that Friday night they did have him budget Ordinance. They had 2 officers there with him. They did look through the vehicle. They said they could not find any state violations with the vehicle that they could see. But like I stated before, it just seems like a safety issue.
Well, there seems like and there is, so I'll find out. We'll
Yeah,
get the
but they
chief
did
to
have
find
him
it.
stopped. They did check it out.
If it's got a license plate on it, it doesn't have to be inspected. Arkansas doesn't have inspections anymore. And apparently the Arkansas Department of Revenue or Finance Administration decided it was a vehicle and gave it a license plate. Yes, sir.
I think we better think seriously tonight about a moratorium on any category of license like the Eureka Van Tours operates under, or we're going to open the barn door and let the horse out. So
Should have been here.
I would make a motion to amend our agenda under new business to include a moratorium on issuances of any new licenses under the category that our present Eureka Van Tours operates under.
I'll second that. Is there a special reason why you keep using Eureka Van Tour?
Because I don't know the category that the license is issued under.
So tours in general?
Transportation services.
Which one?
Any further discussion on this issue? That's,
One question for the attorney.
yes, sir.
For the moratorium that's coming up later, I guess we'll discuss it. Do we have to do a resolution or something, or ordinance to do that?
It really should be a written resolution. You just did one last council meeting where you just took a vote. We're following that up tonight, I hope. It's on your list to look at a written one for that. You probably, if you're going to put one on this tonight, take a few minutes and we'll come up with a written one before you get to it. Probably the clerk needs to consult her books and see what the number actually is.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Would this cover then, as I understand, he does have a carriage franchise? I wasn't aware that he still had one because I know he hasn't been around for a while. Okay. Would this cover then his operating whatever that thing was that he was doing under his franchise?
No.
Does our is the wording of our okay? Let me rephrase this. Is the wording of our franchise sufficient to prevent anyone from operating under a carriage license that does not have a horse-drawn vehicle or an animal-drawn vehicle? Is our present franchise ordinance clear enough? It's clear enough to me, but we just have these people who seem to be very inventive in getting around our ordinances. Is, in your opinion, this ordinance clear enough so that you cannot have a carriage license and operate anything except a horse-drawn carriage?
If you are operating under our franchise agreement, you have to have an animal drawn.
Okay, and that's clear enough. That's clear. Okay.
Anything else? No, we'll move on.
Well, we need a vote on that.
Okay. Oh, okay, on the motion.
On the moratorium?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. Motion carries 6-0. Okay.
Now I have a question. When we pass the moratorium tonight, what does that mean for this coming weekend? If he doesn't have an animal and he's got a 102 business license, does that mean he cannot operate until
That will mean he's still subject to the police chief's investigation of what laws he may or may not be violating. The moratorium would simply prevent what Alderman brought up, is that it could potentially cause him to jump out and buy a license to try to get ahead of where you're at. You're going to prevent the sale of that particular license.
Okay, so my question is, if the business license he's holding
Business license is a tax.
is a 102 carriage service.
Business license is a tax. It
Okay.
is not a permit to do something.
But that's
If
what I'm
you are
saying.
in violation of the law otherwise, it does not give you the right to violate the law. It is a way for the city to raise revenue.
Right, okay, so maybe
So-
I'm using the wrong word.
So whatever license he may or may not be carrying with him does not give you the right to operate if he is in violation of the law.
Yes, sir.
Chapter 4.60, sightseeing tours. I'm sure if Miss McDonald was questioned, that's probably what her license is under, because it defines a sightseeing tour vehicle, which is a motor-driven vehicle having a seating capacity in excess of 7 passengers and employed in transporting persons over regular routes having termini or upon regular schedule of operation and use for the purchase or the purpose of sightseeing. So that's what she does. So, I mean, I don't see anything here that qualifies this vehicle under that regard.
Yes, sir.
And there is a permit requirement under that same section, which also includes liability insurance. So, you know, it appears that this particular person may or may not, we don't know him right now until the police chief finds out, may or may not be operating under the proper licensure.
Well, if he's got tax, he's got insurance.
He did have insurance,
But this
but
is-
I didn't see how much.
But it,
He's talking about an
okay.
extra license, extra liability
Well,
license.
this would be carry liability insurance in a minimum amount of 10,000, 20,000,
Regarding the business.
5,000. That's right.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
So,
Well, I mean, the vehicle, I mean, it has insurance, yes, but it may not be insured appropriately as a commercial vehicle. We don't know.
I don't know.
You know, I mean, it's,
He said this is all new.
you just gotta, somebody has to tell the guy, you know, until we get it straightened out, don't come back. That's,
I did.
if he's got a license, I don't know, it's just,
Yes, sir.
I think it's very important that Mr. DeVito's motion for this moratorium be put forward, because we do need to find out how this person thinks they're operating. Because there's a whole hearing process here. You have to have scheduled tours. There's a penalty involved here. So we need to get down to that.
It's number 4 on new business. Go ahead.
There are rules for a tour franchise. That is a category that's separate from a tour vehicle. That's because the franchise operates with city-owned, with vehicles that are transit.
This just says sightseeing tours. It doesn't say franchise. 4.60.
I'm not sure that there is anything that says tour franchise in the code book at this time.
Well, that's what we're just, group tour franchise is 4.2.
Okay?
So,
What's your second?
and sightseeing tours is 4.6. So,
Doesn't include a franchise.
sir?
It doesn't have anything to do with the franchise. It's not titled that. It's a
No,
different section.
sightseeing tours evidently does not have anything to do with the franchise.
No. In case you want to
Okay.
look, there you go.
You've dealt with the
So in other words, we'll
Motion.
call a break so they can write this up at some point.
6-0.
Moving on.
Sorry.
All right. Without changing the numbering system, number 1 under unfinished business is discussion of the August 19th town hall meeting outline. Mr. DeVito.
I met with Ray Dealfield on getting...
Motion to discuss.
No, so-
Second.
Yes. Okay, floor's open, go ahead.
Met with Ray Dealfield on the setup. I went through what Mr. Mitchell and Mr. prt2 and myself discussed as to the format. So Ray's got all the logistics covered on that, and that's pretty much where we are as of today.
Questions, further discussion? We'll wait till the door gets fixed over here. All right, brings us up to number 2, which has been postponed till December, in December. I'm sorry, September. Looked the wrong one. Moves us to number 3, discussion on ordinance, commercial recycling glass and cardboard. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second. No.
Floor is open. Mr. DeVito.
I'd like to assign this a number, this ordinance a number, and place it on its first reading.
Did you get a second for that?
Not yet.
Oh, I second that.
Okay. That one.
I don't
You have
have
it?
that one.
Okay.
There's another guy.
Does anyone think it's cold in here?
I'm
No.
freezing still.
I'm cold.
Yeah.
You're cold.
You need a-
Yeah,
Yeah, roll call.
like off works for me.
Right.
Y'all ready for the roll call?
What are we roll calling?
That is exactly right.
Do what?
What are we roll calling?
The subject,
Recycling
Mr.
glass
Signing a
and
number, I
cardboard.
The first item on the unfinished
I
business.
thought we were getting a number.
I'm sorry, the third item on the unfinished business.
Mr.
We are.
DeVito?
We have to give
Yeah.
it.
Ms. Snyder?
What? No.
To assign the number and read the ordinance?
No.
Ms. Zeller?
Yes.
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. prt2?
No.
4-2.
Motion carried.
The number is 2187. An ordinance amending Eureka Springs Municipal Code Chapter 5.12, recycling glass and cardboard by restaurants and bars. Whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas has reviewed the current code provisions related to solid waste collection and recycling, and whereas it has been determined that it is in the best interest of the city to amend the municipal code. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, Section 1, that all restaurants and bars operating within the city limits of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, are hereby required to participate in the city recycling program for glass and cardboard. Any restaurant or bar owner or manager which allows more than 10% by weight of his or her solid waste collection to be recyclable glass or cardboard shall be in violation of this ordinance. Section 2, any person found in violation of this ordinance shall be subject to a fine of not more than $50 plus costs for a first violation, and not more than $250 plus costs for any subsequent violation occurring within 1 year. Each violation shall constitute a separate offense. Subsection 5.16.1b shall not apply to violations of this ordinance only. Section 3, severability clause. In the event that any section, subsection, paragraph, subdivision, clause, phrase, or other provision or portion of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional the same shall not affect the validity of this ordinance, code section, or chapter as a whole, or any part or provision other than the part so decided to be invalid or unconstitutional, and the remaining provisions of this ordinance, code, code section, or chapter shall remain in effect. Section 4, repeal clause. All ordinances, resolutions, and parts thereof in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict.
Mr. DeVito.
To approve ordinance number 2187 on its first reading.
Second.
Mr. McClung.
I mean, the 10% amount sounds all good and fair, but, and it's kind of, that'd be a toughie to regulate. Who's gonna take care of the scales around? I mean, that's,
You're right. It is a tough thing, but we have to have an identifiable measure by which whoever does enforce it, and under our law, both our police and our building official could enforce it as a code violation. So they would be the ones that would have to determine that. But we have to have an identifiable scale for them to use. We can't just say too much glass, too much cardboard in your trash, you get a ticket. So that's where the 10% come from. If someone else has a better working idea of how to regulate what is too much, I'd like to hear it. But I looked around the state to try to find something equivalent. I couldn't find anything that's directly on point with this. But in other instances of measure, it's generally by weight with this type of thing.
let me ask you this, Tim, are there similar type ordinances?
I can't find one that's directly like ours here, if you pass this.
Similar?
There's similarities to some of the ones in other places, yes. But I don't find one that's directly on point, saying X business has to recycle X product. Or byproduct, I guess.
Snyder.
I'm a firm avid believer in recycling, but I'm sorry, when you're making it mandatory, I have a problem because I want to know, how are you going to find the people? How are you going to police it? If you have your restaurant and I have one 2 doors down and you and I have a fight over parking, what's to stop me from tearing through your trash to see if you're recycling? This is what's going to happen. I mean, this is what I'm saying. I have this major problem with this mandatory. Who's going to police it?
Mr. Weaver.
You better not be tearing through your neighbor's trash, because we do have an ordinance that says that's a $250 fine for tearing up your neighbor's garbage.
Yeah, but if it's the same thing for him because he's not
And
recycling.
that's what the provision about not applying, it's $250 to $500 fine.
Okay, so how are we supposed to police this? I mean, really?
Mr. DeVito had your hand up first.
Well, I can tell you with my cardboard collection and my glass collection, if I have a waxed piece of cardboard or if I have a non-corrugated piece of cardboard, I will find it sitting on my curb because they check that stuff and they are the ones who will determine, if there is a violation. As was pointed out tonight in the recycling presentation, if we could get people to recycle their glass and cardboard, they could reduce by 1/3 the volume of trash that they throw out. And I spoke with Phil Jackson, the director, and we talked about the problems that Mountain Home and Harrison are going through. They've got a $6 million problem because they have a landfill that's at capacity, and they have nowhere to go with their trash. And they're going to have to resolve that $6 million issue. It's not fair for me as a conscientious recycler to allow other bars and restaurants to throw their trash away, which accelerates the loss of dump space in our landfill. I will ultimately pay for my neighbors who do not recycle. And particularly in the leading and the premier recycling city in the state of Arkansas, that we should have people who disregard what's good for their neighbors. So it's not fair for me to end up having to subsidize my neighbors who don't recycle, because eventually it will reach that point where we have to look for a new landfill, and then we're talking about real money. So I applaud the city attorney for coming up with this ordinance. I think it's a good, solid ordinance. No more than $50 at the first offense. That gives these people an understanding of their civic responsibility to a community like Eureka Springs, which is known as a green community. We are the preeminent green community in the state of Arkansas, and it's imperative that we bring everybody into the fold. We're not asking every business in the community to do it. We're asking the ones that generate the most volume to participate.
Mr. Pertwell.
Well, I just have a couple of questions. I mean, from listening to our presentation here from our solid waste folks, Carroll County, which, by the way, apparently they're doing a pretty darn good job. I was left with a question in my mind: how many restaurants and bars actually don't participate? I mean, we never had a chance to have that question asked or answered, but it would be interesting to know, because if it's only just a couple, if it's only a few outstanding individuals or restaurants or bars, then I would prefer to actually talk to them personally. You know, I say me, it's the royal we, rather. Us talk to them personally and encourage them to recycle. Rather than having an ordinance where I really have a hard time with it being mandatory, and more importantly, you know, I've spoken with our police chief before about anything that's mandatory, and it's really hard it's going to be really, really hard to enforce something like this when you have, you know, are these bags opaque bags? Are they cans that are open cans? I mean, how do you really enforce it? And, I mean, I thank the city attorney for coming up at least with something to talk about, but if it's only just a couple of businesses that are the problem, then I think we should give them the opportunity to comply with the voluntary recycling.
Mr. Snyder.
I kind of like the idea of embarrassment rather than mandatory. One name was dropped tonight, and we can be very good about it in so many different ways. One name was dropped tonight that absolutely floored and astonished me, that they don't recycle. And it irritates me. I would love to be able to have the city go public. Make a list like the county newspaper does with people who are delinquent on taxes, which I've been on that list quite a few times. I'm always 3 months behind. But make a list. Those who are not recycling, you better believe the embarrassment alone from our locals would make them think it might be worth the effort. That would be one way. That's a whole lot better than trying to police it. I'm going out and shaking the bag. I mean, good Lord. But just the fact, if we can get names of places, I will personally volunteer to go to this one place that was named earlier. I'll be more than willing to go there and talk to them. I really will. And, you know, talk to them very nicely. And if they don't want to do it, then I'll put it out if they don't recycle.
Mr. Weaver,
no, but that's what I mean. Is this possible? Is this legal to do, Mr. Attorney?
What liability would that put the city in?
Well, if you accidentally identified the wrong person, it would be pretty strict liability that you would be in trouble. I would caution you that that's not really the way to do it.
We can't embarrass them?
Embarrassing them is
That city's
going to get you sued. It may not lose but it's going to get you sued probably sooner or later. My suggestion is that if you pass this or something similar to it and give some teeth potentially there, if you don't want a person necessarily cited, this has discretion if the fine is up to $50, so it could be zero. Or your officers have discretion. If they pull you over and you're going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit in front of the police or in front of the courthouse out here tonight, they don't have to write you a ticket necessarily. They have a whole series of things they can write you. They can write you a warning. They can give you a verbal warning. They can give you a city citation. They can give you a state citation. A lot of times depends on how you react to the officer when they go to talk to him. The same thing can be done here. If the city goes to somebody and says, look, you're in violation of our new ordinance, you're not recycling your glass, take this to heart and start, or else we have the teeth to back it up with. We have a small fine, and if that doesn't work, we got a bigger fine that we can keep hitting you with over and over and over until you get the message. But you're not necessarily condemning a person to immediately get a ticket, or that the ticket will even bear a large fine. It doesn't. It's $50 plus the court costs.
Well, let me ask you, would it be okay for the recycle people who pick up to inform us, so to speak, on when they can tell they're picking up a whole ton of glass or cans?
That could be part of the investigative step from which the police would draw.
So that's not a violation of
Once
privacy.
you get an ordinance to do so.
Yeah, once there's an ordinance to do so.
Okay.
Mr. DeVito.
Well, the fact of the matter is we don't know who's participating and who's not participating. We don't know who's recycling. We don't know who is not recycling. The only way we can bring people into compliance is with this ordinance. You know, this is 2013. Everybody knows we're supposed to recycle. These people choose not to recycle. They don't have an excuse. I'm sorry. In today's world, we know what the right thing to do is, and that is recycle. And some of these people have chosen not to participate. And it's not fair to all of us who do. So that's why these laws are created.
Mr. Mitchell. I'm sorry, Ms. Silver.
Ditto
You'll be
to
next.
Mr. DeVito, and I'll just add, in a normally distributed population, and let's assume that Eureka Springs is normally distributed, there are 10, 80, and 10%. There's 10% that will be our Jerry Landrums who'll be composting, and they'll be out there in the forefront doing everything. 80% of us will go, I need to get on board and get my cardboard and my glass out there, and we'll go along. And then there's going to be this little group over here, about 10%. They're going to go, I'm going to push it to the limit. I'm going to let my house get neglected to the point it's fallen down. I'm going to let the trash build up in my yard until the weeds are completely as high as the roof, and that's just the Gaussian bell curve normal distribution. So this ordinance is needed.
Ms. Zeller.
Oh, and I'm surprised we even need this ordinance. I agree with James. I'm amazed that we have people who actually have to be coerced into doing this. However, if garbage day, where you're putting out your garbage, now I was downtown for 30 years, so I know how this works. If you put out your garbage on one day and recycling day is another day, it's pretty obvious who isn't recycling. On garbage day, if the sidewalk is lined up with plastic bins full of glass bottles, obviously you're not recycling. You're putting them out for the garbage. I think the approach to give somebody a warning ticket is a good approach, and these guys who pick up the garbage, they're pretty good. I could have 2 bags of garbage out. When I had times when I had 3 bags out, it was on my bill the next month. I mean, these guys keep track. They're pretty good at what they do. And especially with something as bulky as glass bottles, and there's no mistaking that glass bottles and cardboard, I mean, you know, they're there. You can see them. If they're not out on recycle day and they're out on garbage day, you get a ticket. It's as simple as that. We don't have to haul people into court the first time around, but clearly we have people in this town who need to be educated to be more responsible in taking care of their garbage. So I don't see anything wrong with this. I think this ordinance is a good step in the right direction.
Mr. DeVito.
I wish it was so easy. It's easy to tell the small operators who have 2 or 3 boxes of cardboard out or a couple of bins of glass out, but a lot of the larger properties use dumpsters, and you have no way of knowing what's in that dumpster. But I can tell you the guy who dumps that dumpster knows what's in that dumpster.
Yeah.
And he'll be the one that'll tell who's violating the ordinance or not.
Got a scale?
Mr.
You
McClung.
hear the glass crash.
By looking, I mean...
Mr.
you
McClung,
know.
you're up.
Well, that's that in itself is a problem. I just don't see how you can really effectively monitor it without putting the guys on that truck, you know, as snitches. Excuse me, or part of the process in you know, in prosecuting violators or citing them or whatever it is that you're going to do. So that makes them a party to that, and I don't know if that's really what their job is. So far, everything that has been done has been on a volunteer basis. I asked the fella down there earlier this evening, and he said it's nearly all are doing it now. So, and I'm like James in that gosh, I'd like for it to be at 100% too. But and no, it's not fair that he does it and somebody else doesn't. But there's a lot of things in life that aren't fair. But that doesn't necessarily make it all right either.
Mr. Snyder.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is if we pass this, that means then that we could go to this handful of places that's not recycling and say, look, we're giving you a heads up. It's on the books. It's the law now. Please start recycling.
When you
Or
say,
else, so to speak.
when you say we, I would
Well,
probably
you know.
not encourage the council members to do it personally, although you could talk to your neighbor, I suppose. But the police could certainly do that.
Okay, so I just have such a problem with this mandatory thing. But
Mr.
yes, something's got to be done.
Mr. DeVito.
When this ordinance passes, we could ask the city clerk to just send out a letter, like we get letters all the time on new tax rates or stuff that there's a list of the businesses that fall under these categories, and you send them out a notice that we've now enacted this ordinance, and you need to do the right thing, and that's recycle. I mean, this is an educational process, and as the attorney stated, I mean, I'm not in favor of going around and right off the bat give them a $50 fine. No, that's not how we operate. You get a warning. If you continue to violate the law, just like any other law, then penalties start to phase in. But this is an educational process, and there's been so much education put out there already, and there are still people who do not participate. And it's not fair to those of us who do. This is a matter of money. This is a matter of the money that we work so hard to earn is being taken advantage of by the people who don't. And it's all a matter of fairness. And I think this is a very fair way of approaching this topic.
If you include the warning, you have to include it in the ordinance, so it'll be part of the law. Otherwise, unless it states that first offense has a warning, not a mandatory ticket.
Well, we could add the first would be a written warning. We don't have to do that. An officer still has discretion of whether to write a ticket anytime they encounter a violation of a city ordinance.
Mr. McClung?
One other question, and that is, all of the businesses pay for their trash service on their water bill as it is anyway. Is that not correct?
That's
And that
correct.
helps
That's the way it's
them?
billed.
Even if they've got a dumpster or...
It all comes out on the water bill.
Right, it all comes out on that. If they're paying for extra pickup, that kind of thing, it still comes out on that water bill. So effectively, they're paying for that trash pickup whether it's sorted or not.
That would be correct.
And that could be a contention. I don't think that it's going to be, but that could be a contention on those that aren't participating and say, hey, I pay for my trash pickup whether it's sorted or not. Pick it up. I pay for it. You want it sorted, you sort it.
Mr. DeVito?
This is about what happens when the landfill reaches capacity and we have to look for another landfill. That's where the big dollars come into play. And people that are not participating are hastening that end result that we will reach capacity sooner than later. And when you go around looking for a new landfill, you're talking about millions of dollars.
Ms. Zeller?
In other words, for about the first time maybe in history, we are getting ahead of a problem and trying to solve it before it reaches crisis proportions. That's another way of putting what James is saying, and I agree with him entirely. Let's get ahead of the game here. Let's do something about it before it reaches a crisis.
Anybody else? Okay. Where are we at? Yes, sir.
Mayor, I want to let you all know I'm completely for recycling. I just think this is virtually unenforceable. It can be enforced, but I think you could ask your police department what they think about this, and the answer might be, am I going to be there at 5:30 in the morning when the trash gets picked up? It's the enforcement issue. It's not the concept. Yes, we understand we have limited space for solid waste disposal. It is merely this enforcement potential here, and we have to do something. You may say officers have discretion, but we don't say anything in here about having any discretion for warning. And I think the mayor's right. I think it ought to be something ought to be in there if we're going to pass something like this, which I don't think we can enforce.
Mr. DeVito?
I will amend the ordinance to allow for first offense to be a warning with no monetary assessment against the business in question.
The second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Guess that's 6-0. Couldn't tell.
I didn't hear yours.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, with that amendment, do we have a motion to?
To approve on the first reading.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve on the first reading as amended now. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Mr. Snyder, did you say no?
No, I actually hesitantly said aye this time.
And so we're 5-1?
Yes.
Okay. It is approved on first reading. Not approved, but
Now,
first
we are
reading.
going to check with the police in the meantime about this, right? Before we go to a second reading?
What do you
Ask them
mean?
what they feel about it?
Well, it's not a law yet, so,
No.
and how's that going to sway
Like
anything?
what Dee had brought up about talking to the police about how they feel about it.
Well, I can tell you how they're going to feel about it, but it doesn't really matter.
I'd move for a 10-minute recess.
Second?
Made and seconded, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? 10-minute recess.
That's for you. Does that give you enough time to?
We'll be back in session. We just finished the first read, approved the first read on Ordinance 2187. Any further business on that? If not, we'll move to number 4. Okay, number 4 is discussion of 80 Mountain rezone to C3, removal of R1 listed buildings for non-religious purposes. The motion to discuss.
Move to discuss.
Second.
Floor is open. Mr. Mitchell.
Either one of us can be.
I'd like to table this at this time. Planning is meeting tomorrow night to continue their discussion about the C3 category, and it would, I don't think we really want to preempt them here at council at this time. We ought to let the process work its way through.
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mark sign. Moves us on to number 5, discussion of Ordinance 2186, limo taxi business license, be the second read.
Move to discuss.
Second.
Floor is open. Mr. DeVito.
Move to suspend the rules and place ordinance number 2186 on its second reading by title only.
Second.
Ms. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. McClung?
Yeah.
Mr. DeVito?
Yes.
Mr. Perkypile?
Yes.
Ms. Zeller?
Yes.
6-0.
You.
So this is the one about... Yes, please. Thank you. Ordinance number 2186, an ordinance setting business license fee for limousine businesses.
Mr. DeVito.
Move to approve ordinance number 2186 on its second reading.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Do
opposed?
we have discussion on this?
Yes. Yes, we can. Before
I
we
just,
can back up. Did we have discussion? Do you want discussion?
I want
Okay.
just one thing.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, what I want to ask the city attorney, is there anything we need to put in this to define who can have a taxi service or a limousine service license to avoid people coming in and getting licenses and trying to get around the law and operating like we had this last weekend? Is there something we need to add to this ordinance to get ahead of the game here and avoid this problem of people coming in here and, not paying attention to our laws? Who can have a license, in other words? Do we need to put something in there that qualifies somebody to be able to have this license in the first place?
Not in my opinion.
Okay.
To put something in there, to do that, you would have to do it for every category and define who could apply for each category. And
Okay.
I believe that would be simply unworkable, because you would then get into trying to develop guidelines for businesses that don't even exist today that might appear tomorrow.
Okay, I was just trying to get ahead of the game. I thought I better check it out before we vote.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay. Moves us on to number 6, ordinance extending 200-foot rule in residential zones. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Floor is open. Mr. DeVito.
I'd like to sign this ordinance a number and place it on its first reading.
Second.
We'll take a roll call on the first reading.
Suspending.
Just to sign the number? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Stand by.
So this is the one for
200 foot. 188, isn't it?
yes, I have it. Thank you. The number will be 2188. An ordinance amending Eureka Springs Municipal Code to establish a 200-foot rule for all residential conditional use permits. Whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas has reviewed the current code provisions related to conditional use permits in residential zones, and whereas it has been determined that it is in the best interest of the city to amend the municipal code, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, Section 1, that the Eureka Springs Municipal Code is hereby amended to add the following restriction in all residential zones. No request for a conditional use permit in any residential zones shall be granted if the property line of the property upon which the use will be carried out is within 200 feet in any direction of the primary frontage streets of the property line where an existing conditional use or legally non-conforming use offering the same or similar services is located. This restriction is not intended to, nor shall it apply to, any existing conditional use activities where a permit is requested for an existing activity due to a change in ownership. Section 2, severability clause. In the event that any section, subsection, paragraph, subdivision, clause, phrase, or other provision or portion of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity of this ordinance, code section, or chapter as a whole, or any part or provision other than the part so decided to be invalid or unconstitutional, and the remaining provisions of this ordinance, code, code section, or chapter shall remain in effect. Section 3, repeal clause. All ordinances, resolutions, and parts thereof in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict.
Mr. DeVito.
Move to approve ordinance number 2188 on its first reading.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Mitchell, second.
Yeah, several. Thanks.
I think we can do this in a voice.
Excuse me?
I think we can do this in a voice. First read?
Unless we want discussion, and I have a question, actually.
Is this a voice vote or a roll call vote on the first?
May I ask a question
Yes.
before we
Yes, go ahead.
vote, or before council votes? If I'm not mistaken, there are some conditional use permits that are not transferable. So,
Yes, there may be, but they would be non-transferable based on other law. This would just allow the ones that are transferable. It would not make the ones that are not transferable.
okay,
Transferable.
thank you.
Yes, the council passed one just the other day that would not be transferable because it terminates on our 30-day rental.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. Motion carried. That was on the first complete reading, is that correct?
To
Okay.
approve on the first reading, yes.
Okay. All right, that moves us on to number 7, resolution for a 9-day moratorium on CUPs, R1.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
Floor is open. Mr. McClung.
Thinking back that Ms. Blankenship had wanted us to include it in here about make sure that we didn't have any conflict with existing CUPs that came in for transfer, that they would not, that this would not hold up the process on those. Would that affect it in any way, Mr. Weaver?
The way this written resolution continuing your moratorium, it would not affect it. It allows them to continue to come in if there's a sale of their existing property and they want to.
That's all I needed to know.
Okay.
Any further? Okay.
Make a motion that we give it a number and read it.
For a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Who wants to claim the second, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Snyder?
Snyder.
Okay.
Okay.
Who wants to claim? Okay,
I've
you
got
got it. Nikki got it.
Okay. The resolution number will be 621.
6 what?
621.
Thank you.
So it's this one, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution number 621, a resolution continuing a moratorium on the issuance of new conditional use permits. Whereas the City Council and the Planning Commission of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, are in the process of reviewing the use of conditional use permits in residential zones. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, that the City Planning Commission is hereby directed to not accept any new applications for conditional use permits, nor issue any such permits in R1 zones, except for properties which have already have such permits or which had applied for a permit before July 8, 2013, for a period of 90 days, ending on October 20th, 2013.
Mr. Snyder.
Okay, so just to clarify for my poor little brain, if someone already has a CUP, they can renew it, and/or a new buyer can buy it and apply to renew it.
They don't need to necessarily renew it. But
However
if there
it
is a new
works.
buyer, yes.
Yes, okay, so however it works, okay.
Yes.
So that can be done, and anybody who is in the process of applying,
Which I think Beverly said there was one in the process.
yeah. Okay, and this is strictly R1.
This is strictly R1.
Thank you.
I will tell you the 90 days, the date that is in this is 90 days from tonight. So if that makes a difference to any of you, I don't know, but I just used 90 days because that was what you said. But I didn't start it with last meeting. I started it with this meeting for the 90-day period to give it the date.
Okay, so the October 20 is 90 days from today.
From tonight.
Okay.
Okay. That moves us on to new business.
Do we have to read the resolution?
Sure, yeah.
Oh,
just
okay,
did.
right.
She did read it. Yeah.
Damn.
Is it as bad as me?
Is it time to go now?
It was time to go a long time ago, but we're still here. Okay, new business moves to number 1, mid-year budget review. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
Made and seconded. Floor is open. We lost Lonnie. Where'd he go?
Okay, Bruce gave
Lonnie
us
run out
this.
already. So
Bruce
moving
gave
on.
us this and said he wanted to postpone it until next meeting.
He's still here.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
I thought you
Well
left. See, I do the job you asked me to. He's such a poop.
He'll be back. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Could we move Bruce up in his stead?
We
him out of
can because you're gonna table it anyway, aren't
That's why he's staying.
Okay. So- Lonnie's back. Yeah. So Bruce, you're going to have to wait. So you're going to have to wait. Lonnie's back.
Here he is.
It was just a
You're up, Lonnie.
news bus.
You're up.
You're up, Lonnie.
Is it time?
It's time.
Time.
Okay. I don't really know how I want to proceed with this, but at any rate, we can go down through it, or we can just hit the high spots, or whatever you'd like to do.
I'd like you to just hit the high spots.
Okay. Of course, the first two pages are the general fund revenues, and this is a June statement, so we're at 50% of what we budgeted. We're running so far at 41% on our revenue of what we budgeted for the year. Part of that is, if you'll look back at the memo that I sent to you for the end of last month, the biggest issue there is the sales tax, and that the sales tax is 2 months behind. So what we're reporting here in June is April's sales tax. That's just the way because the way it works is April sales tax would have been filed in May by the merchants, and then we don't receive it until the following month. So at any rate, that's primarily why we're running behind. If you look down through there on the percentages, you'll see that we're pretty close on most all the others. But 41%, the general fund revenue.
Lonnie, is there a percentage point there that for historically where we should be at this point? Are we is 41% in line with the previous years at this time?
I haven't gone back for 5 years like I did at the end of May when you asked the question on the budget then. I think we are, but I can't say 100% without going back and doing the research. But at the end of May, we were.
Yes.
We were right in the ballpark.
Thank you.
Okay, then we go into the non-departmental general fund expenses. Goes over to page 4. And our expenditures compared to what we budgeted for the non-departmental is at 40.5%. So we're under budget there. Expenses. Going on into the mayor's budget. The mayor's budget is at 53.5%, and one of the main reasons for that budget being over somewhat is, like I told you previously, there's $8,000 of audit fees for one of the bond issues that was charged into the mayor's budget. And
Could you say that again? I can't hear you.
there was one of the issues that say that the mayor's budget catches a lot of the expenses that are for really the city as a whole. And there was an $8,000 fee for one of the bond issue audits that's charged into the mayor's expenses, as are a number of other things that goes into are charged against the mayor's budget. So, excuse me, that $8,000 is one of the big things, and We also have in there reconstructing the fee for reconstructing the city's website. Those professional fees are in there. And but otherwise, the mayor's budget is pretty much right on target.
Bonnie, also for our viewers out in TV land, the revenues are through April, but these expenses are through June.
They are through June. On the cash basis, this is what we've actually spent. If there are payables out there that we don't know about yet, where these are not recognized in here. Okay? So that's the mayor's office. We're going over to page 6. My department, finance department, we're at 52.7%. Up in the professional services,